At 4:17 a.m., when the house exhales and the refrigerator hum becomes a lullaby, something else inhales. Floors remember footsteps you don't recall. A shadow on the wall lengthens without a source. You wake with the weight of a conversation you never had, a bruise on your hope you can't explain. You think it was just a bad dream because that's what everyone says. But I remember what it's like to sit in those dreams on purpose. I remember lighting candles to invite what smiles in the dark. I remember the whispering bargain you never hear because you're asleep, and how your morning pays for it. I'm not here to scare you. I'm here to show you what's stealing from you in the quiet, and how to take back what's yours. I used to open the door. Tonight, I'll show you how to close it. This message matters because nights are architects. They draft the blueprints for your next day when you aren't watching. They stitch your thoughts, prime your reactions, lay out your footsteps. If your mornings feel heavy for no reason, if your home argues with you before anyone speaks, if you wake exhausted from battles you can't remember fighting, it is not because you are weak. It is because something loves to work where there is no witness. This speaks to the ones who fear the dark and pretend they don't, to the cynics who laugh at the language of demons yet carry a loneliness like a lead apron, to the spiritually curious whose shelves are crowded with answers in jars, to the sleepwalkers who haven't known a truly quiet night in years. It speaks to the parents watching a child who wakes screaming at 3 a.m., to the lovers who go to bed angry and wonder why the morning is worse, to the ones who have tried every trick and still feel their homes are crowded even when they're alone. I speak as someone who once leaned into the unseen for control. I thought I could harness darkness like electricity, flip it on when I needed power, shut it off when I didn't. I wanted the night to obey me, and it did, until the price came due. Demons don't build anything. They borrow, they rent, they thrive in rooms you leave unlocked. What they do in your home while you sleep is simple and devastating. They rearrange the furniture of your heart and nudge your life into becoming a place that fits their shape. But you are not helpless. There is a way to leave the night empty-handed. I did not become a witch because I loved darkness. I became one because I was tired of being afraid. When you grow up in a house where words slam harder than doors, you learn to negotiate with fear. I wanted something stronger than the chaos I knew. Candles, circles, symbols, they felt like handles on the wind. When the world felt wild and unkind, I could draw a line on a floor and dare something to cross it. That kind of control is intoxicating, especially if you've lived a life that didn't ask what you wanted. At first, it was small. A charged room, the sensation of being noticed while I whispered to names that never belonged to me. The air would tighten, thin and sweet, like the second before lightning. It wasn't Hollywood. No furniture flew. The most powerful things are subtle. They move by inches and weeks. One night turned 2, 2 turned 20. There are seasons you don't know you're in until you see the dust on the windowsill and wonder how long you've kept the curtains closed. When I talk about demons, people picture horns and red eyes. I picture silence that smiles. I picture a thought that isn't mine arriving like it lived here first. I picture a feeling entering a room before anyone does. In those days, I learned their favorite techniques, the ones I didn't have a name for then. They love thresholds, the places where one thing becomes another, day into night, waking into sleep, child into adult, single into married, hope into surrender. While you sleep, they stand in the doorways of your life and make small adjustments. They don't flip your table, they tilt it. They loosen one screw in a chair leg and wait for breakfast. You forget the dream, but you remember the irritation. You have the urge to say something cruel that you'll later call just being honest. They specialize in almosts. They love agreements, not signatures, assents. Resentment you nurse and call a boundary. Shame you cradle and call humility. A secret habit you call relief because it buys you 1 hour of quiet. In the night, they inventory these agreements like landlords checking a lease. They itemize what belongs to them. They don't need you to worship them. They only need you to agree. In the unseen, agreement feels like gravity. They love unattended rooms, the spare bedroom that became a closet for a marriage, the guest room where you store old fights, the corner of your mind with boxes labeled someday where grief hums like a fluorescent light. While you sleep, they sit there. They translate your dreams into accusations and slide them into your morning like a note under your door. You don't deserve peace. You are too late to change. The past is heavier than you. And they love noise that masquerades as silence. The phone screen's blue glow, the shows you tell yourself you can handle because you know it's just fiction, the scroll that makes your pulse quicken in all the wrong ways. When you finally turn it off, it doesn't turn off you, it echoes. They ride those echoes. They don't need you to worship them. They only need the room you leave when you're half asleep and telling yourself you're fine. I remember a season when my apartment smelled like incense and milk, candles nested in every corner, scattered stones like punctuation marks around an argument I didn't know I was having with my own soul. I would go to bed at 2, wake at 7, and feel as if I'd worked a double shift mining something heavy out of my chest. I thought I was powerful because I had learned to call a presence like one calls a friend. When it came, I was not the only one who felt it. People would step into my home and pause, eyes skimming the air as if they'd walked into a memory that wasn't theirs. I thought it meant I was in control. Now I know control has a taste, and it tastes like nothing. It numbs you. While I slept in those nights, here is what I noticed. My dreams stopped being stories. They became scripts. They didn't wander. They instructed. I'd wake with a sentence that felt like a fact. He does not love you. The world is cruel. You need more. You need to be harder. You need to never be the one who apologizes first. These lines would echo through my day, steering the smallest choices. A soft question became a clipped answer. A moment that needed kindness got efficiency instead. I built a persona who could not be injured, and with it I built a home that could not be gentle. This is how the night trains the day. One morning, a friend visited. She stood by my bookshelf, running a finger along the spines like a curious librarian. "It feels crowded in here," she said. "It's just us," I told her. "And that," she answered, and pointed to a corner of the room where I kept a symbol I wore around my neck like a secret crown. I shrugged. Crowded felt normal to me. Crowded was the sound of power. But that day after she left, I sat on the floor and tried to name what the crowd had done. It had turned my laughter into a strategic weapon. It had turned my rest into a calculation. It had turned me into a keeper of a fire that didn't warm me. I was tending flames that liked to burn only the things I loved. Here is the core lesson the night taught me when I finally listened with the lights on. Demons rely on borrowed authority. They are squatters in the human condition, trespassers who pretend to be landlords. Their currency is permission, not the big rituals, though those can carve highways, but the tiny allowances we grant without noticing. They can suggest, they can seduce, they can shadow, they cannot create. So they imitate. They cannot love, so they counterfeit closeness. They cannot bless, so they rebrand curses as realism. They cannot turn on the light, so they become experts at rearranging your furniture in the dark. While you sleep, they do not build new memories. They recut old footage. They splice the worst 5 seconds of your childhood to the first 5 seconds of your morning. They blur a face you adore with the outline of someone who hurt you once and then wait for breakfast to become a courtroom. They place a single thought at the edge of your consciousness, like a glass at the edge of a table. Watch what happens when someone bumps it. Watch what spills. They also study the room temperature. Spiritual atmosphere is not poetry, it is physics. Atmosphere is shaped by what is consistently spoken, played, watched, held. It is shaped by the emotional climate you ignore because it is cheaper than honesty in the moment. A house soaked in criticism will hum at a frequency that invites the same. A house soaked in gratitude hums differently. Demons choose homes that hum like them. The more your nights are filled with unfiltered input, the more they have to harvest. This isn't superstition, it's stewardship. Whatever you host multiplies. And understand this, nightmares are not the only playground. The blank space where you finally switch off is their favorite canvas. Exhaustion is a loosened lock. Numb scrolling is a welcome mat. Every unresolved resentment is a window cracked. Every cynicism you cradle because it feels smart is a porch light that tells them someone is home and not paying attention. I am not calling you bad. I am saying these are the places I learned to consent without realizing it. Here is the honest part I wish someone had told me. The night does not invent monsters in your home. It amplifies the ones we feed. It empowers what we entertain. It extends the lease of what we refuse to evict because it carries our handwriting. The good news is brutal and beautiful. If permission is the power, then permission can be revoked. It was not a thunderclap, my turning. It was quieter. It was a Tuesday with rain on the windows and a headache that sat just behind my right eye like a stone. I had done everything I knew to do the night before. Circles, smoke, words old enough to feel important, and I had slept like a hunted animal. That morning, I made coffee and sat on the floor of my living room. The symbol in the corner looked back at me like an unblinking pupil. My phone was face down. The apartment smelled like the last of the incense and something sour. There is a silence you meet where you either double down or you kneel. I didn't plan to kneel. My body did before my mind approved it. For the first time in a long time, I stopped trying to impress the dark. I stopped trying to be interesting to it. A memory rose. My grandmother's voice. Not fancy, not ritual, not aimed at the sky like a flung wish, but held in her chest like a warm loaf. Her prayers were not performance, they were address. She spoke like someone who knew someone. I had mocked that. I cared about power, not person. But that morning, kneeling on the hard floor, a sentence left my mouth that tasted like surrender and like oxygen. I don't want this anymore. I don't want to host what hates me and smile because it pays my rent in attention. I had no incantation to fix what I had invited. I had no circles left to draw, so I said a name I had avoided in case it worked. I said it quietly, like testing a floorboard. Jesus. The room changed temperature. I wish I could give you a meter reading or a photograph. I cannot. What I can tell you is that the crowded feeling lifted like someone opened a window inside my ribs. The fear did not vanish in fireworks. It unclenched like a fist deciding to become a hand. Tears came, not dramatic, tired tears. I sat in that name and felt something the night had never given me. I was not performing anymore. I was being met. I looked around my home and saw it differently, not as a stage for my will, but as a shelter entrusted to me, a place where people would open refrigerators and minds and find what I had chosen to store. I saw the objects I had set with care and felt the care turn to sand. I whispered another sentence I had not said in years. I'm sorry. Not sorry like groveling, sorry like walking into your own kitchen and realizing you left the stove on, sorry like finally telling the truth out loud. The days after that were not cinematic, they were honest. I took the symbol from the corner and put it in a box, and the box in a bin, and the bin out with the trash. I cleaned, not with superstition, but with integrity, room by room, word by word, friendship by friendship. The nightmares did not run screaming. They faded because they found fewer places to stage their plays. I was not suddenly good. I was suddenly willing to be loved more than I wanted to be interesting. And here was the shock that changed everything. What I had called power had always been a negotiation with something that never intended to keep its promises. What came into my home when I prayed like my grandmother never negotiated. It blessed, it corrected. It didn't need candles to enter or a performance to stay. It claimed me, and in that claim I found freedom from entertaining shadows just to feel noticed. The perspective shifted. I was not at the mercy of the night. The night was at the mercy of what I hosted. So hear me with the lights on. What demons do in your home while you sleep is not inevitable. They are not sovereign over your home. They are opportunists. They cannot create. They curate. They harvest what we grow. They prefer the soil of resentment, the shade of secrets, the irrigation of constant input that drowns stillness. Deny them that harvest and they move on, like scavengers do when there is no food. Tonight is not about fear. Fear is the move they make when they're losing their lease. Tonight is about authority, not the kind you perform, the kind you practice. Authority that blesses before it corrects. Authority that says the hard apology at 9 p.m. so the argument doesn't stretch until morning. Authority that chooses what plays in the last hour of the day because you understand something is listening and learning how to speak like you. Authority that remembers the names of the people you love and speaks them out loud over the rooms they sleep in. Not magic, care. Fill your home with what you want your life to echo. Speak kindness until it becomes the climate. Choose quiet until quiet likes to stay. Forgive like you are breaking a chain you can't see. If you pray, pray like you are addressing someone who hears you, not performing to something that wants your performance more than your heart. If you don't pray, start with gratitude. Gratitude is not a mood. It is a revolt against scarcity. It starves accusation. It changes the hum of a house. And if you have dabbled like I did, if your shelves hold promises in jars, know this: you are not trapped by your past experiments. You are not the sum of the rooms you once kept. Renouncing is not superstition. It is simply telling the truth to the air. I don't agree with this anymore. I don't host this anymore. Then live like it. Live like your bed is not a battlefield, but a table set for rest. Live like your phone doesn't own your last hour. Live like your home is a garden, not a stage. You don't have to break yourself to be safe. You don't have to harden to be strong. The bravest thing you can do for your nights is to make peace the loudest voice in your home. Turn on a lamp, open a window, play songs that make your shoulders drop, read words that raise your eyes, forgive first, bless with intention. And when you wake at 4:17 a.m. and feel the house inhale, exhale with it, not in dread, but in decision. Demons do not belong in your home. They do not belong in your bed, your kitchen, your children's rooms, your thoughts. They are trespassers. Treat them like it. Don't argue with shadows. Turn on the light. Don't entertain whispers. Tell the truth out loud. Don't rearrange your life around fear. Rearrange your rooms.